think I didn't do anything wrong, just made a mistake people blew out of proportion. Yes, I slept with my ex at our reunion, but it wasn't planned. It wasn't even emotional. My husband finding out before we got home shouldn't have ended our entire life, yet somehow I'm the villain while he's the saint with a folder full of evidence. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Vera Lune, and I swear I didn't do anything wrong. At least, not in the way everyone's acting. Yes, I slept with my ex at our college reunion, but it wasn't planned, it wasn't romantic, and it definitely wasn't supposed to end my marriage. It just happened after a few too many drinks, a few too many memories, and a lot of people cheering when he spun me around on the dance floor. I laughed because it felt harmless. I felt seen again, like the woman I used to be before the house, the kids, and Elias's quiet moods turned every day into a schedule. I didn't even make it home before he found out. Somehow, the photos hit the group chat first, tagged and shared, until even my sister saw them. By the time I walked through the front door, he already knew. He didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't ask for an explanation. He just looked at me, calm and unreadable, and said he hoped I'd had fun. That tone, it scared me more than any fight could have. I thought silence meant forgiveness. I didn't realize it was the start of something permanent. The morning of the reunion started like any other Saturday, except everything felt slightly brighter, sharper, like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. I remember standing at the mirror, curling my hair, and thinking I didn't look 34. I looked good, better than I had in years, actually. I told myself that's what this night was about: closure, confidence, maybe a little nostalgia. I said it wasn't about Ronan, not really. Elias made coffee while I got ready. He didn't say much, he rarely did lately. When he finally spoke, it was about practical things, as if we were colleagues sharing a schedule. He asked what time I'd be home. I said late. He asked if it was necessary to stay for the after party. I told him it was a reunion, not a parent-teacher meeting. He didn't argue, just nodded, poured his coffee, and set the mug down on the counter beside mine, but a few inches apart, like even the mugs were keeping distance. He mentioned that he might have some errands downtown around noon. I asked what kind. He said, just personal ones. His tone was quiet, neutral. I didn't think much of it then, except that the word personal sounded oddly deliberate. The kids were at my mother's for the weekend, which made me feel freer. I told Elias that maybe he should use the time to relax, maybe call his friends. He said he didn't have much to say to anyone lately. I laughed, said that was the problem. He never said anything. He just looked at me for a long moment before replying. "You'll say enough for both of us." It was the kind of line that should have stung, but I told myself he meant it affectionately. By afternoon, I'd convinced myself this trip was harmless. Everyone from my graduating year was going. I couldn't be the only one skipping just because my husband didn't like old stories. I packed light, a short satin dress, heels, perfume I hadn't worn in years. When I walked past Elias on the way out, he didn't comment. He only said, "Drive safe." I told him, "Don't wait up." The venue was a hotel ballroom near the river, done up with string lights and photo booths. The kind of place that looked romantic whether you wanted it to or not. People squealed when they saw me, all hugs and exaggerated compliments. I was the one who'd made it. 2 kids, a decent career, still thin enough for a cocktail dress. I ate up every second of it. Then I saw Ronan. He was exactly as I remembered. Casual confidence, a grin that dared you to believe he'd changed. He came up behind me while I was talking to an old roommate, his hand grazing my back, like it had every right to be there. He said something about how time had been kind, and I laughed because it was easier than stepping away. He smelled like cedar and wine. Everyone turned when they saw us together, the golden couple back in the same frame. Someone snapped a photo. The flash went off, and I swear that moment froze something inside me. We danced. Of course we did. It was harmless, I told myself again. The song was slow, and when he pulled me close, the crowd cheered. I could feel eyes on us, phones up, people whispering that we still had chemistry. I laughed too loudly, pretending it was all a joke. But deep down, that old thrill, the one I hadn't felt in years, started stirring. Ronan asked how Elias was. I said, serious as ever. He smirked. Still the engineer? I nodded. He said, he never did know what to do with a spark like you. I should have walked away, but instead I said, maybe he got used to the dark. We slipped out to the patio for air. He talked about his startup, his travels, his breakup. I told him about the kids, about how Elias worked too much and noticed too little. He said, you sound lonely. I said, I'm fine. He said, you don't look fine. And then he kissed me. It wasn't cinematic. It was brief, messy, half a decision. But I didn't stop it. Later, upstairs in a hotel room that smelled of stale perfume and cold air conditioning, I kept telling myself it wasn't real. It was nostalgia, not betrayal. Ronan fell asleep beside me. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Clara, 1 from Tara, and a text from Elias. Hope you're enjoying yourself. Be safe. There was no emoji, no anger, just words so polite they felt rehearsed. When I woke up near dawn, I felt nauseous, not from guilt, but from dread. I showered, erased my messages, and told Ronan I needed to head home early. He asked if I regretted it. I said I didn't know yet. That was the truth. Driving home, the sun was just starting to rise. My phone buzzed again. It was a notification from our reunion group chat. Someone had posted a short clip from the night before. Me laughing, Ronan spinning me, the two of us too close, too familiar. The caption read, still the best chemistry in the room. I froze at a red light, heart thudding. I scrolled through the comments. People were tagging friends, joking about old flames reigniting. When I pulled into the driveway, Elias's car was parked exactly where it always was. The house looked normal. I tried to steady myself, tell my reflection in the mirror that I could fix this. If he'd seen it, I'd laugh it off. Say it was just nostalgia, an illusion. That's what I was best at, reframing, reshaping, surviving. Inside, the house smelled faintly of coffee. 2 mugs sat on the counter again, his spotless, mine waiting. He was in the kitchen, dressed, hair neat, calm as always. For a second, I thought maybe he hadn't seen anything. He looked up when I entered. Morning, he said softly. Morning, I replied, trying to sound casual. He asked if the reunion went well. I said it was fine. He nodded, like he already knew. Then he asked if I'd had fun. I hesitated before saying yes, too quickly. His expression didn't change. He poured himself more coffee and asked if I'd like some. His tone was polite, distant. I told him no. I was too tired. He said, I can imagine. I tried to fill the silence. I said everyone had been asking about me, that it was nice to feel remembered. He said, you were remembered more than you think. I laughed nervously and asked what that meant. He said nothing, just sipped his coffee, eyes steady. The quiet felt unbearable. I snapped that he could at least say what was on his mind instead of playing detective. He said, I don't have to play anything. I told him people at reunions exaggerate things, that social media always twists moments. He nodded slightly. Moments are fine, he said. Patterns are different. I didn't understand what he meant then. I just wanted to end the conversation. I said I needed to sleep. He said, you should. When I went upstairs, his side of the bed was made. The guest room door was half closed. I caught a glimpse of his desk, papers stacked neatly, a laptop open to a spreadsheet with no visible title. I told myself he was just working, as usual. Still, something about the orderliness of it felt wrong, too deliberate. By evening, Clara called. She said my reunion video was circulating. I told her to delete it. She said she couldn't. It was everywhere. Someone had tagged Elias's name in the comments. I laughed it off, said it didn't matter, but my voice trembled. When Elias came home that night, he was calm again, almost gentle. He asked if I wanted takeout. I said maybe later. He didn't push. He walked past me toward the hallway, stopped, and said, "You don't need to explain." That should have been a relief, but something in his tone made me cold. I asked what he meant. He said, "It's already clear." Then he went into the guest room, closed the door, and I heard the click of a lock. For the first time in years, I didn't know what he was thinking. That scared me more than if he'd shouted, because Elias never acted without a plan, and whatever this was, it felt like the beginning of one. I sat alone in the living room, scrolling through my phone, reading strangers' comments under that stupid video. They called me bold, free, even brave. I tried to believe them, but somewhere beneath the noise, I could still hear his voice from that morning. Personal errands, downtown, 10:45 a.m. The message came from an unknown number with no caption, just the image, me laughing, Ronan's hand on my back, the blurred crowd around us. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. It was one thing to see the video in a group chat full of old classmates, but getting it directly, privately, like that, felt different. It meant someone wanted me to know they had it. I deleted it immediately, though I could still feel it burned behind my eyelids. Elias was in the shower when I saw it. The sound of running water gave me time to decide my story. I'd say someone exaggerated, that it was innocent. I told myself I was smart enough to spin this before it spread further. That was always my talent. Control the story first, and you get to decide who looks like the villain. I texted Clara. She worked in PR, the one who convinced me to go to the reunion in the first place. "Take down any photos that tag me," I wrote. She replied with a shrug emoji and said, "Too late, babe." People already screen recorded everything. I typed, "Delete what you can." She didn't answer. When Elias came out of the bathroom, he looked fresh, unbothered. He asked if I'd slept well. I said not really. He said, "You should rest more." The calmness of his tone made me uneasy. I asked if he'd seen anything online. He just said, "I see what matters." Then he kissed my forehead like someone saying goodbye before a trip and left for work. I paced the kitchen for a while. The house felt too organized. His coffee mug, clean again. His laptop gone from the dining table. The folder labeled household was missing from the drawer. I didn't remember seeing him take it. By noon, I called my sister Tara. I needed someone to take my side before this spiraled. She picked up with that cautious tone she uses when she already knows something's wrong. I told her Elias had been acting distant, paranoid even, ever since the reunion. She asked directly, "Vera, did something happen there?" I said no, of course not, that people were just stirring things. She sighed, said she'd seen a photo. My heart dropped. She said, "It doesn't look great, Vera." I said, "You know how people make everything scandalous online." She said, "Elias looked, well, he looked different when I saw him this morning. Calm, but final." That word stuck with me. Final. I asked what she meant. She said he'd stopped by Mom's house to pick up some things for the kids and didn't say much. He'd just told them he might be sorting out next steps. She asked if we were okay. I said of course he's just overreacting. But deep down, I felt it. Something irreversible shifting beneath the surface. That evening, when Elias came home, I tried to act normal. I made dinner, poured wine, even wore one of his favorite dresses. He didn't comment. He just sat, thanked me, and started eating in silence. I told him I'd heard people were talking nonsense online. He said, "They talk because they saw." I said, "You really think I'd do something to embarrass you?" He said, "You already did." I tried to sound wounded. "It was a dance, Elias. I didn't kill anyone." He said, "Sometimes it's not what people die from. It's what they live with." The way he said it, quiet, steady, made me want to scream. I told him I wouldn't keep defending myself over a misunderstanding. He nodded, not arguing. Then he stood, took his plate to the sink, rinsed it, and said, "You've always been good at stories. I'll let this one finish itself." When he left the room, I saw his phone light up on the counter. A notification banner flashed. Document scan complete. I didn't recognize the app icon. The next morning, I couldn't stay in that house. The walls felt too tight, too full of quiet judgment. I drove to Tara's apartment. She looked uncomfortable letting me in. On the counter was her phone, lit up with a message thread. I saw my name before she flipped it face down. "Who was that?" I asked. "Just Mom," she said too quickly. "Did Elias talk to her again?" Tara hesitated. "He mentioned speaking to someone. He said he was getting advice." "What kind of advice?" She didn't answer. I changed the subject, said I needed help getting people to stop spreading photos. She said maybe it was better to stay quiet. I told her silence makes things worse. She said, "Not always." Later that day, I went to my office. Clara was there, avoiding my eyes. A few co-workers stopped whispering when I walked in. I heard fragments. Reunion clip. Husband saw everything, so awkward. My stomach twisted. I went to Clara's desk. "Did you delete them?" She said, "It's everywhere, Vera. Even the local alumni page posted it. Someone sent it to your husband's company." I froze. "Who would do that?" She shrugged. "Maybe one of your old classmates. Or maybe he did." That idea hit me hard. I'd never imagined Elias using the internet against me. He wasn't that kind of person. At least I thought he wasn't. When I got home, he was in the living room sorting papers. He'd taken off his wedding ring. I noticed immediately. I said, "So that's it? You're done pretending now?" He said, "I stopped pretending when you did." I asked if he really thought ending our marriage over gossip was fair. He said, "I'm not ending anything. I'm just documenting it." Documenting what? Patterns. That word again, patterns. He left soon after, saying he had a meeting. His tone was too calm, too professional. I opened his laptop when he was gone, but it was locked. A yellow sticky note sat beside it. "Bring forms." I wanted to believe it meant bills, taxes, something routine. But nothing about his behavior was routine anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every noise in the house sounded deliberate. The faint hum of the printer in the next room, the click of drawers opening and closing. When I checked later, the printer tray held a single blank page. I pulled it out, but behind it was another paper, mostly blacked out by marker lines. I tore it up, threw it away, and tried to calm down. The next morning, I went to the supermarket just to get out. I told myself I'd buy groceries, act normal, prove the world hadn't changed. But even there, people looked at me differently. Two women near the produce section whispered something. One had her phone out, the reunion photo glowing on the screen. I turned my cart sharply, pretending I didn't see. At the checkout, the cashier gave a polite smile and said, "Rough week." I forced a laugh and said, "People love to overreact online." He nodded slowly, like he'd already read the whole story. On the way to the car, my phone buzzed again. Another message from that same unknown number. This time, it wasn't a photo. It was a screenshot of a calendar notification. Meeting, personal, 11:30 a.m. The location line said, Downtown, Civic Center. My heart dropped. That was Elias's handwriting style, even the capitalization. Whoever sent it had access to his schedule. I called him immediately. He didn't answer. I texted, "What is this? Are you meeting someone about us?" He didn't reply. When I got home, the guest room door was closed again. I knocked. No answer. I opened it anyway. The desk was spotless, his folders stacked neatly in a box labeled Archive A. The USB port light blinked once before going dark. I sat down and whispered, "What are you doing, Elias?" From the hallway, his voice came quietly. "Preparing." I turned around. He was standing there, calm, holding a mug. "You shouldn't go through my things," he said. "I'm your wife," I snapped. "Since when do we have secrets?" He tilted his head. "Since one of us started lying to strangers and calling it freedom." I said, "You're being dramatic." He said, "You used that word last time too." I tried to make him feel guilty, told him the kids would be crushed if we broke up, that we could fix things. He said, "You can't fix what you keep justifying." He walked past me, set his mug on the opposite counter, and said he had errands. I asked where. He just said, "Downtown." When he left, I sat in the silence again, staring at the calendar alert still open on my phone. By Monday, it felt like everyone in town had seen that picture. The reunion clip had become some kind of low-tier viral gossip post. People at the kids' school whispered. Even the woman who usually smiled at me in the pickup line looked down instead. It was like I had stepped out of my old life and into some version of myself I didn't recognize. The woman who everyone knew had messed up. Elias didn't say a word about it. That silence pressed on me harder than any argument could. He drove the kids to school early and stayed late at work. When he was home, he typed quietly in the guest room with the door closed. The calm was unbearable. I'd have preferred shouting. Shouting means someone still cares. On Tuesday morning, Dahlia asked if Dad was mad because Mum had too much fun. The way she said it, soft and unsure, made my chest tighten. I told her no, that Dad was just tired from work. Milo chimed in, saying his teacher had mentioned rumors online and asked if his parents were okay. I laughed too loudly and told them people make things up to feel important. They nodded, though I could see doubt flicker across their faces. When I got to my car, I saw Elias's notebook lying on the passenger seat. It wasn't open, but on the cover was a neat label in his handwriting, June log. I froze. He'd never labeled anything like that before. I flipped it open just once. Inside were short notes written in columns, dates, locations, small one-line summaries. One entry read, "Reunion, 9:40 p.m. photo posted." Another said, "Monday, groceries, witnesses, comment thread archived." My stomach lurched. It felt like being on trial without knowing the charges. That evening, I decided to go out. I told myself I deserved a break, something to remind me that life wasn't just judgment and tension. Clara texted about a rooftop bar gathering after work, and I said yes without thinking. Before leaving, I told Elias I'd be out with friends. He didn't even ask where. He just said, "Have fun," in that quiet, detached tone. It sounded almost like a farewell. The rooftop was crowded, glowing with fairy lights and background music. Clara was already tipsy, hugging me too tightly. "You're famous now," she joked, waving her phone like a trophy. I smiled, pretending to find it funny. Inside, I wanted to scream. Half the people there kept glancing at me like they were waiting for me to say something outrageous. I tried to own it, to act unbothered. That was always my trick. If you act confident, no one can prove you're ashamed. So I laughed, ordered another drink, told everyone Elias was processing and that he'd come around once he remembered how dull his life would be without me. It got a few nervous laughs. Then one of Clara's friends, a guy named Nathan, raised his phone and said, "Smile, redemption arc incoming." I posed automatically, arm around Clara. The flash went off, but behind him, near the balcony, I caught sight of someone filming us. A tall man with a phone held low, half hidden behind a potted plant. My stomach dropped when he looked up just long enough for me to recognize him. Elias's cousin, Drew. He didn't say anything, didn't come over, just turned and walked out. I tried to act casual, but my voice shook as I told Clara I needed air. She said, "He'll get over it, Vera. Men always do." I wanted to believe that. When I got home, Elias wasn't there yet. His mug was on the counter again, beside mine but further apart than ever. The faint smell of toner hung in the air. A sticky note sat on the edge of the sink. "Bring forms." I tore it in half without knowing why. Later that night, I heard the printer whir to life again, pages sliding out one by one. I tiptoed to the door and pressed my ear to it. The rhythm stopped, then the soft click of a USB being unplugged. I went back to bed and stared at the ceiling until morning. Wednesday, the silence broke, but not the way I expected. At the kids' school pickup, one of the other moms, Heather, waved me over with that false smile people use when they're dying to gossip. She said she'd seen a video from the bar. My stomach clenched. She laughed and said it wasn't that bad, just me and my friends celebrating freedom. I asked where she saw it. She said, "It's on someone's story, maybe a relative of your husband." That was when I realized Drew had posted it. My pulse raced. I texted Elias immediately. "Your cousin's harassing me online." No reply. At home, I tried to confront him in person. He was sitting at his desk, papers neatly stacked, laptop open to another spreadsheet. I asked if he knew Drew posted that video. He said he sent it to me first. I asked if he planned to stop him. He said, "Why would I? It's just more truth." I told him he was acting cruel. He said, "Truth isn't cruel, it's quiet." I called him cold, robotic, pathetic even. He didn't flinch. He just looked at me and said, "You should save your energy. You'll need it soon." That night, Tara called again. She said Mom had invited Elias and the kids for dinner on Friday. I said, "Without me?" She hesitated. She thought maybe you could use space. I laughed bitterly. "Space? That's all anyone wants to give me lately." Tara said softly, "Maybe they just don't trust you yet." Yet, as if forgiveness were inevitable. Thursday morning, the house was empty when I woke. A calendar reminder blinked on Elias's computer screen. Downtown 9:25 a.m. He hadn't closed the lid this time. Next to the laptop was a small USB drive labeled 614. My hand shook as I picked it up. I didn't dare plug it in, but I stared at it long enough to feel like it was staring back. Around noon, Clara messaged me again. "He's not coming to your office party, is he?" I said, "Why would he?" She replied, "Because one of his colleagues asked for photos of you for documentation." I didn't answer. When Elias came home that evening, he found me waiting in the kitchen. I told him this had gone too far, that we needed to talk, really talk. He said, "I already told you what matters." I said, "You can't just ruin my reputation because you're hurt." He said, "I'm not ruining it, I'm just not protecting it anymore." That line hit like a slap. I asked if he even wanted to fix things. He said, "I don't fix lies, I file them." I felt something inside me snap. I accused him of being manipulative, of setting me up to look like the monster so he could play the saint. He didn't deny it. He just said, "Everyone eventually shows who they are. You just did first." I followed him down the hallway, shouting that he wasn't the victim. He turned briefly, eyes steady, and said, "You're right, I'm not." Then he walked into the guest room and shut the door. I threw my phone across the couch, furious at his calm, at his refusal to break. But a few seconds later, it buzzed again. A new message, same unknown number. This time, it was a photo of the USB drive sitting exactly where I'd left it. Underneath, a single line of text, "Archive complete." For a long moment, I couldn't move. The next morning, I woke to find a new folder open on the shared desktop titled Backup A. It was empty, but the title bar said, "File uploaded successfully." My throat went dry. At work, people avoided eye contact. Clara whispered that HR had seen the reunion post and that someone had sent them a timeline of incidents. I demanded to know who. She just said, "Vera, maybe you should take a few days off." I went to the rooftop that night again, desperate for noise, for anyone to tell me I wasn't crazy. The air was cold, city lights flickering below. I ordered a drink I didn't want and stared out over the edge, wondering if Elias was at home deleting me one file at a time. Friday came, heavy and still. The kids were at my mother-in-law's house, where apparently there was a family dinner I hadn't been invited to. I told myself it was fine, that I needed space anyway, but the quiet in the house felt like punishment. Every sound, the clock ticking, the hum of the fridge, seemed to mock me. I kept checking my phone, hoping Elias would text, maybe send a picture of the kids. Anything. Nothing. By 6, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove across town to his mother's place. The curtains were drawn, the driveway full, Elias's car, Marianne's old sedan, even Tara's hatchback. They were all inside, my family, my life, without me. I knocked. Marianne opened the door halfway, still in her apron. The smell of roasted chicken drifted out, warm and homey. She didn't smile. "Now isn't a good time," she said. "I just want to see the kids." "They're eating." "I'll wait." Her eyes were sharp, but her voice stayed calm. "You've caused enough confusion this week, Vera. Let them have a peaceful meal." I laughed, trying to sound unbothered. "You make it sound like I committed a crime." "Didn't you?" she asked softly. That tone, the disappointment in it, made me flinch. "You don't know the full story." "I know enough, and so does Elias." "He's overreacting," I said. "He's letting other people feed him lies." Her lips pressed tight. "He doesn't need help seeing truth anymore. He's handling things properly." The word properly made my stomach turn. I tried to peek past her, hoping to see Dahlia or Milo at the table, but she blocked the doorway. "Please go home, Vera. He'll contact you soon." Something about how she said it, formal, rehearsed, made my throat close up. She shut the door gently, not slamming, not angry, just done. I stood on that porch for a full minute before I could move. The sound of laughter drifted through the window, Dahlia's voice, my own daughter laughing with them, as if I were already erased. I drove home with shaking hands. The house looked wrong when I entered, too clean. On the kitchen counter was a single envelope, blank, no name. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a list of household items, each with a check mark, bills, insurance, car title, school forms. At the bottom, one note in his handwriting. All in order. I threw it on the counter and poured myself a drink. My phone buzzed. "Tara." I ignored it. Then it buzzed again and I picked up. "Vera, you shouldn't have gone there," she said. "I wanted to see my kids. They're okay. Just don't make it worse." "Worse?" I snapped. "He's turning everyone against me." "Maybe people just saw enough on their own." "Whose side are you on?" "I'm on the side that's tired of your stories," she said quietly. For a moment I couldn't speak. My own sister. She sighed. "He's not shouting. He's not fighting. He's just preparing. You know what that means." "I don't care what it means." "You should." Then she hung up. I sank onto the couch, staring at the living room that suddenly felt staged, stripped of warmth. 2 mugs again on the counter, his spotless, mine half full and cold. Even the air smelled different, faintly of paper and printer ink. Later, I heard the front door open. Elias stepped in, composed as always. He set down his keys and said hello, like nothing was wrong. I demanded to know why I wasn't allowed to see my children. He said, "They needed a calm dinner." "I'm their mother." He nodded. "That's true." "Then why?" "Because calm isn't what follows you lately." I laughed bitterly. "You think you're a saint, handling things properly? You're just punishing me because I embarrassed you." He met my eyes. "You embarrassed yourself." I told him people make mistakes, that he used to believe in second chances. He said, "I still do. That's why I'm doing this right." "What's this?" "You'll see." He started walking toward the hallway and I followed him. "You can't just freeze me out," I said. "We're still married." He paused at the guest room door. "For now." Those 2 words hit harder than shouting ever could. I told him he was acting heartless, that his calm was cruel. He looked back and said, Cruel would be pretending nothing happened. I tried to make him angry, to get any real emotion. "You'll regret this," I said. "When people see what you're doing, they'll think you're controlling." He gave the smallest smile. "They already saw what you did." Then he went into the guest room, closed the door, and locked it. The soft click echoed through the hallway. I sat on the stairs, shaking. The silence was unbearable. In the corner of the desk, I noticed a flash drive taped beneath a folder labeled taxes. I pulled it loose. On the back was a date, 6/20. I didn't dare plug it in. That night, I texted Clara, told her everything was spiraling. She wrote back, "He's not fighting because he's winning." I didn't reply. When I finally crawled into bed, the sheets on his side were perfectly smooth again. I stared at the ceiling, whispering to myself that I still had control, that he was bluffing. That silence didn't mean victory, but as I drifted towards sleep, I remembered Marianne's words at the door. "He's handling things properly." After that dinner, everything went eerily calm. He still came home at the same time, still brewed his coffee, still left 2 mugs on the counter, one spotless, one cold. But I knew something had changed. The quiet wasn't distance anymore. It was direction. Every move he made felt measured, deliberate, as if he'd already rehearsed the ending and was simply waiting for the right cue. I tried to keep up appearances, posted a few normal photos online, smiling at my desk, captioned with lines like, "Back to work, back to normal." People commented polite encouragements, but I could sense the judgment behind their words. At the office, whispers followed me again. I told myself they were jealous, that people loved watching a confident woman fall apart just so they could feel superior. Then HR called me in. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Ronan, said there had been concerns about professional conduct. I laughed, assuming she meant gossip about the reunion. She didn't laugh back. She said someone had emailed a package of contextual materials, screenshots, video clips, and a timeline, suggesting I had blurred boundaries with a former client. My stomach twisted. I asked who sent it. She said the sender was anonymous. Anonymous. But I didn't need to ask. I told her it was all lies. She said they weren't making any conclusions yet, just reviewing. I walked out of that office shaking, barely holding myself together. In the hallway, Clara wouldn't meet my eyes. When I confronted her later, she said, "He's not sending this stuff to ruin you. He's sending it so he doesn't have to speak." I told her she didn't know what she was talking about. She said quietly, "He's speaking very loudly without saying a word." That night, Elias was home early. I tried to bring it up, half laughing, pretending I was amused by how far he was taking things. "You really sent things to my workplace?" I asked. He didn't even look up from his laptop. "If the truth hurts your job, maybe it wasn't as harmless as you said." I told him I could make his life miserable if I wanted to. He said, "You already did. That's why I'm fixing it." His calmness made my hands shake. I called him heartless again, told him he was weaponizing paperwork because he didn't have the courage to feel. He said, "Paper doesn't lie, people do." He closed his laptop, walked to the counter, and picked up his mug. "You keep talking about forgiveness," he said, "but you haven't once said you're sorry." I snapped back that I didn't owe an apology for wanting to feel alive. He said, "You wanted attention. You got it." Then he rinsed the mug and walked away. The next morning, he was gone before sunrise. The air smelled like toner again. I checked the guest room. The desk was clear, except for a single note under a glass coaster. File uploaded successfully. Archive B. I didn't understand what that meant until my phone buzzed at work. It was a message from HR asking if I'd like to take voluntary leave while the situation settles. The situation. That's what my entire life had become. A situation. At lunch, I drove to the park just to breathe. My sister called again. She said Elias had been talking to someone official. I told her she was being dramatic. She said, "He's not hiding it, Vera. He said he's documenting everything properly. I hung up before she could say more. That evening, I drove to Marianne's house, but no one answered the door. I stood there staring at the living room window. The curtains were open this time. Dahlia and Milo were inside, watching a movie with popcorn. Elias sat between them. He looked peaceful. The scene was so normal it made me dizzy. I knocked again. He looked toward the door but didn't move. Then he leaned forward, said something to Dahlia, and she reached for the remote, pausing the movie. A few seconds later, the porch light turned off. When I got home, the mailbox flag was up. Inside was a letter addressed to Vera Lune, personal and confidential. No return name, just a local courier logo. I tore it open. Inside were copies of our bank statements, signatures highlighted, joint accounts separated into 2 columns labeled his and hers. No note, no explanation. I tried calling him. No answer. I texted, "What are you doing?" He replied 5 minutes later, handling it properly. I sat on the kitchen floor, holding that paper like it might dissolve if I stopped squeezing it. Later that night, Clara called, whispering like she was afraid someone might hear. "Don't go to work tomorrow," she said. "Just don't." "Why?" "Because there's talk about a formal complaint. Not criminal, just procedural. He's building a record, Vera." I laughed, half mad. "What's he going to do? Take me to court for being emotional?" Clara didn't answer for a long moment. Then she said, "If he's half as calm in front of a lawyer as he is with you, he'll win whatever he wants." I didn't sleep that night. Around 2 a.m., I heard a car outside. His, probably. I watched through the blinds as he got out, carrying a small envelope and placing it on the passenger seat of his car. The headlights blinked once before the car rolled quietly down the street. Saturday morning, I checked his study again. Empty. The USB drives were gone, the laptop cleared. On the wall calendar, a new note was written in his precise handwriting. Monday, Civic Center, 10 a.m., the Civic Center. I stared at it for a long time, heartbeat hammering. Then I laughed out loud. "He wouldn't," I said to the empty house. "He's bluffing." Still, I dressed carefully, did my makeup, and rehearsed what I'd say if he actually tried to pull something dramatic. He wanted control, but I could still play confident. If this went public, I'd look calm, put together, misunderstood. That's what I told myself as I looked at my reflection. By mid-morning, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unsaved number. "Please confirm receipt for Monday delivery, Civic Center, 10 a.m. I froze. This wasn't a bluff. This was a notice. My hands trembled as I typed, "What delivery?" The reply came instantly. "Service documents. Verification required. Service. Documents." The words felt heavy, official, final. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I told myself it was some clerical thing. Taxes, maybe a misplaced form. Still, I knew better. He'd warned me in every way except saying it aloud. When Elias came home that evening, he looked almost relieved. I asked what he'd done. He said, "Just made sure everything is in writing." "You're trying to scare me," I said. He shook his head. "No, I'm trying to stop pretending." Then he sat down across from me, folded his hands, and said it again, slowly, like it was a promise. "I'm handling this properly." The Civic Center lobby was brighter than I expected, all glass and echoes. I spotted Elias near the entrance, calm as ever, talking to a man in a navy blazer. When I called his name, he turned, said nothing, and nodded to the man. The stranger walked over, handed me a sealed envelope and said softly, "You've been served." Inside were divorce and custody papers, temporary orders, effective immediately. People nearby pretended not to watch. Elias met my eyes once and said, "It's just the lawful way to end noise."